Hi, everyone. Thank you all for attending today's symposium. My name is Angelina Hernandez Carretero. I'm currently a postdoc at UC San Diego, doing research in diabetes and obesity as an IRACTA fellow. IRACTA is an NIH-funded program at my institution, which furthers our training in teaching skills and teaching at nearby minority-serving institutions. It's just a plug for it. I just want to thank you all for attending today's session. And although I'm a postdoc, we're introducing today our topic on now hiring PhDs, no postdoc required. And it's sponsored by the APS Trainee Advisory Committee. So I'm currently the teaching section representative on the Trainee Advisory Committee. For those interested in just learning about APS committees in general, there's information on the APS website under APS committees, or you can speak to me afterwards to learn, just how you can get involved. So we're hosting this session today, me and my co-chair here, Brendan, from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and we are presenting on behalf of Trainee Advisory Committee on this topic because we believe it's important and critical for trainees to be exposed to various careers that are not just academic route, but so with the changing job market, we need to expose ourselves to various careers that are non-academic as well. And this is especially so due to the recent statistics by Science Careers, how there's this doubling every year in the percentage of PhD holders going into non-academic positions, while there's also, unfortunately, a low percentage going into tenure track faculty positions. I don't mean to say unfortunately. It could be something that it's just triggering stimulation for us to be aware of the various careers. And so today we will have speakers who have successfully left the research bench, to various careers that they will showcase today. And they will also educate us on some of the skills needed to enter these fields. So today we'll have Dr. Philip Clifford, who's Associate Dean for Research and Professor at University of Illinois, Chicago, and he will introduce us what we can do as graduate students to train ourselves while in grad school to enter these fields. And then Dr. Maria Urso, who's Medical Science Liaison for BTG Pharmaceuticals. Dr. Sonia Zarate, who's Director in the Office of Undergraduate Research at University of San Diego, and Board of Directors for SACNAS, and also Master Facilitator for the NRMN, which she'll talk about later. And then we have Dr. Andrea Guazdo, who is President of Guazdo Associates Science Consultants, and also a Clinical Assistant Professor at Harvard Medical School. And we have Dr. Jeremiah Mitzelfeld, who's a technology analyst for life sciences in the Office for Technology Commercialization at the University of Maryland in College Park. And then Dr. Carrie Wolinitz, who's Associate Director for Science Policy and Director for the Office of Science Policy at NIH. Unfortunately, Dr. Brett Kirby, who was on the agenda, will not be, his job took him internationally, and so he's not joining us today. Just a heads up in case you were looking forward to hearing that. And so before we get started, just a couple reminders. For those that entered, there was this worksheet outside with some of the speakers' presentation slides. And at the very end of that packet, there's an evaluation form that we would really appreciate if you can turn it in and submit it at the end of the symposium, or we have people that will be collecting it outside the doors that you can give to them. And your feedback is very valued, and you'll even be entered to win an Amazon drawing for a $50 gift card if you fill it in. And then, so As noted on here, that these talks will be available online at the aps.org. Then we also have an early career award, the Benos Award, that I wanted to make sure you all knew that the deadline for this award is in January, but you should look into it, and its information is on the APS site. And then also the professional skills training courses. So currently they're open applications for both the writing and reviewing manuscripts course and the interview skills that are being offered online this summer. So take advantage of those training courses and submit an application to be a part of it. All right, so now I'll introduce Dr. Philip Clifford. He's an associate dean, and he works a lot with graduate students and guiding them to train to enter different career fields, various career fields, and he'll speak today now.
Thanks very much. I'm going to take a moment to edit my presentation. I took a slide out, and since the thought has been presented about the numbers of positions in different fields, I'd like us to address that very directly just to start. And we'll push number 2. And so let's start out with a quiz. This slide is a multiple choice quiz about the number of biology PhD students in the US right now. So take a moment to decide what you think the appropriate number is. And then I'm going to ask by a show of hands, how many of you think that there's somewhere around 10,000 biology PhD students in the country? How many of you think the number is 30,000? How many of you think that it's 50,000? Hands up. That looks like maybe close to half. Okay. How many think it's 70,000? A pretty good sized number there. And any souls going to go for 90,000? I see a couple of hands around the audience. Actually, the answer is 90,000. The American Society for Cell Biology tells us that right now there are 87,000 PhD students in biology programs in the United States. About a third of those won't make it through their PhD programs. So if you make it through your PhD program, you're a step in the right direction. But the point here is that you have lots of competition. Regardless of what career path you choose, there are a lot of other really smart people out there looking for those jobs. And so it's really wonderful to have a series of speakers here to tell you about some of the options as you move along the path that don't require a postdoc. This slide I show because even though the session is all about how to make a career transition without a postdoc position, I think I need to admit in full disclosure that I did a postdoc, and this is a picture of me with my daughter during my time as a postdoc at UT Southwestern Medical School. Now, the truth is, you may see some difference in these pictures, but I absolutely don't feel any different than when I was hiking on this trail 30-some years ago. But I know that times have changed because that little girl on my back is now 31 with her own successful career. And I have to admit that my postdoc position wasn't all that helpful for me. It was a pretty frustrating period. And I think that's one of the reasons that I've gotten involved with development of postdoctoral offices and the National Postdoc Association and trying to make sure that we're training PhDs for the positions that are out there. Let's take a look at today's training and workforce model for PhD scientists. This slide was generously provided to me by Keith Yamamoto, who's the Vice Chancellor for Research at UC San Francisco. The process for most people is to get a bachelor's degree, move on to a PhD, and then into postdoc, where some people at that point realize that there are other careers besides academic careers, and they branch off and move into positions in journalism and business and work in science policy or work in intellectual property and all of these other fields that are potential careers for PhD scientists. What the problem with this model is that 80% of PhD graduates go on to do postdoctoral fellowships. And I want to be clear about this, because if your ultimate career requires you to have expertise in research, then you need to do a postdoctoral fellowship. But for many, spending time in a postdoc position has a high opportunity cost. In economics and business, opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from one choice when another alternative is chosen. This opportunity cost represents time, money, and other achievements, other things you could have achieved during that time. So we think, and Keith has proposed, that a more appropriate model would be one that looks like this, where people go from their bachelor's degree to a PhD and then consider some of these other options that don't require postdoctoral training. Those that are going to go on to be independent investigators in pharma, biotech, academia, those where you need a postdoc would then go on and do a postdoc position. Well, what does it take to be able to transition to a position at the PhD level rather than waiting to the postdoc? And I would submit to you that it requires having a plan, not just a wish that you would like to take one of those positions. We've promulgated this idea of an individual development plan. This concept came out of a FOSSEB committee in 2001, was published in The Scientist, but really came to fruition when a group of us created a website called MyIDP, which helps walk PhD scientists through the process of creating their own individualized plan for their career progression. And that process involves understanding yourself, specifically understanding your skills, your interests, and your values. Then understanding the wide array of career opportunities in step 2. Sessions like this are really essential in understanding what the key characteristics of some of these other positions are and how you might be able to make that transition. And then the third step is to set some goals so that you can develop the skills that are going to be necessary for you to compete in your desired career path. And finally, you would implement that plan along with your PI, advisor, other mentors that can help you carry out that plan. Now, I'd like to make a comment or two about step 1, about skills, and a comment or two about career exploration before I sit down to listen to the rest of the folks. The first is about this idea of skills that are needed to be developed. You saw, or you maybe grabbed outside, this APS list of professional skills and something about the professional skills offerings from APS. APS has really been at the forefront of this idea that PhD scientists need more than just skills in examining research questions. And so you'll notice this list. We do a pretty good job of teaching people the basics of the science and developing their technical skills. But look at the rest of the skills that are indicated on this list. Teaching skills, communication skills, management skills, those are things that require taking some time away from the bench. It's helpful if there are some programs at your university It's great that there are some sessions that are available at the EB meeting every year, both in the APS sessions and at the Career Resource Center that's sponsored by FOSSAB. So this document would be a worthwhile way for you to go through and look and see what skills you need to develop in the remaining time that you have in graduate school. So that's the first step, understanding your skills, interests, and values. And I have to say that we often focused on skills, but I want to make a particular point that values are often the thing that really drive our careers. And in particular, a paper in 2013 by Kenny Gibbs and Kimberly Griffin said that values are the lens through which we view our careers. It's just a well-stated point there about not ignoring these other factors that are involved in determining your appropriate career path. Here's a point that I've stolen from Kim Petrie at Vanderbilt, where Kim talks about career exploration and different ways that we can learn about different careers. The easiest ones that we can do on our own time, in our own way, is to read articles, books, visit websites of other professional organizations. It takes a little bit more effort, especially when you're in a beautiful sunny San Diego, to get up in the morning and come to a session like this. A little bit more effort still to initiate contact with somebody you don't know, to ask them about how they got into their career, to get inside information through what's known as an informational interview. Again, one more step with a little bit higher activation energy required is to do a job shadowing or to do something else that would be a skill building experience, including an internship. And believe me, the best way to prepare for any of these careers would be if you have a chance to do a short-term internship at some point during your graduate career. I'd like to suggest to you that we focus so much of the effort on what the PIs can provide for us in our career training, but that old model of an apprenticeship with a single mentor really doesn't work. And so this is a figure that helps remind me that there are other people that can provide some input into this career development. Scientific societies like APS really have stepped up. There's a session after this, 12:30 at ASBMB, that really highlights careers for trainees. And so I think the FOSSAB umbrella of societies have really contributed importantly to this development. Funding agencies, especially funding agencies like HHMI and Burroughs Wellcome, who have invested in their postdoctoral training and their pre-doctoral training, but also the NIH with some of their recent efforts seem to have really stepped up their game. But the action is at the academic institutions. And so one of the roles that you can play is take that professional skills list to your PI. Take it to some of the people that are in administrative positions in the Office of Research or the graduate school and say, how are we going to get these other skills? There needs to be some training at our university to help develop those skills. And I want to use as a last slide just some best practices that I think you can use as examples when you go to your graduate school to say we need to organize these. And I've suggested that you go to your Office of Research or graduate school, but you know what? There are many successful programs that have been totally student run. And so that also is an option. You can do some of these as discussion groups or in ways that don't require some administrator to provide approval. There are some other examples, though, of universities who have done a great job, and here are some of the things that they've done. In general, the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest thing to do is schedule regular career seminars where you bring in people to talk about their careers, or you bring in people to teach you some of those skills like leadership and management skills, or budgeting, or negotiating, some of those other skills that you need. There are some fantastic examples of career planning courses being put into the graduate school curriculum, and I know you might groan because you're kind of tired of taking those courses, but this is a really practical idea that would help you develop those skills that are going to help you plan your job search process and be ready to do informational interviews and submit teaching philosophies and research philosophies, etc. And so the best examples of those come from UMass Medical School with Cynthia Furman, NYU with Keith McCauley, and the University of Kentucky, where a recent paper from Nature Biotechnology by Nathan Vanderford described the course that they have. They're professional skills development courses intended to address each one of these skills that are listed in the APS professional skills document at Oregon, at Penn State, at the University of Wisconsin, at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. So you might seek those out as examples of things that you can do on your campus. And finally, as we saw in Kim Petrie's Continuum, it's the hardest thing to do is to manage to get an internship or to fit that into your schedule or to organize those sorts of things. But very successful programs have been developed out of the Medical College of Wisconsin with the PICO group, with UC San Francisco out of their Office of Career and Professional Development, and Washington University in St. Louis with their BALSA group. These are programs that take graduate students and postdocs, allow them to work part-time for free, 5 to 10 hours a week. So this isn't something that's going to take over or replace your time in the laboratory. And it's made a difference in them being able to get through the door for interviews and to be successful in making that step to a career outside of academia. So I'll leave you with those best practices because I'm anxious to hear what our other speakers have to say about how they've made the transition to their various careers.